concrete walls. There's a place for us where we could go, where we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in a secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in a secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, you guys? You want to do a live stream? You want to talk about FPV? Okay, we're gonna give it a try. But if it doesn't go well, it's on you. Welcome to live stream, everybody. Oh, it's Monday night. It's time for the American live stream. All the Europeans are in bed. Quick, let's shoot guns. No, don't say that word. I'll get demonetized. Don't. Shoot. Oh, I can't wait for you to learn something too, Addison Richards. Ah, Black Tiger finally caught the start of one. Yes, there's a bug behind me. Is there, or are you just trying to trick me into looking behind me? There's a fair chance there would be a bug behind me. There's a lot of bugs. Bug on the carpet. I don't know about that. Let's go, boys. Let's go. I'm happy to tell you that today, remember, if you watched Sunday's stream, I complained a lot about my Hemera hot end on my Ender and the trouble I was having getting it to work print right. I'm happy to say that today, that's what you do, right? You complain about it on a live stream, and then somehow you figure it out. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect, but it is 1,000 times better than it was. I figured out a couple settings to tweak that got it dialed. So I know you guys were really all day, you were like, God, I wonder what's going on with JB's printer. I'm happy to tell you that this is like, I mean, it's not, this is something. It's something. It has some issues with overhang. You can kind of see, you can't see because it's not zoomed in. But it needs a little more work on the overhangs. But the just humongously blobs were you know, for those of you who are in the pool, what fixed it was to take the flow rate down to 80%. I have done a calibration cube, a single wall calibration cube to measure the flow rate, and found that it should be at about 80% even when the E-steps were set correctly. But I didn't want to just, when I started over with Prusa Slicer, I didn't want to just assume. And so I was like, eh. But it was, it's not E-steps. I swear to God, it's not E-steps. I swear to God, the E-steps are calibrated. I know what you're going to say is that if your flow rate measures out at 80%, then your E-steps cannot be calibrated correctly. I feel you on that. Nevertheless, E-steps is, I'm really sure it's calibrated right. But bottom line is, it seems like it's working correctly. To be fair, when I did the E-steps, I did not take the nozzle off. I just used the teaching tech method of turning the temperature way up and extruding really slowly. So it should be pretty close to correct. But anyway, boom, 80%. And now, I'm trying to get it the rest of the way there, but I'm really happy. After over a month of dicking around with this stupid effing printer, I'm finally right back where I started. It's a joke. Welcome to Livestream. Here's what we're doing here. Here's what we're doing. This is my main screen. Yeah, the Sunday stream is for Europe. That Arabrat. Eminence, the Sunday at 1 p.m. is the European stream. Eminence, whatever your name is. That's the European stream, my friend. That's for you. Sunday at 1, while all the Americans are playing football or whatever they do on Sunday afternoons. That's your evening time. So, here we are. Here's you. Do I feel bad when I go a day without flying, says Phil from KC. I go more days without flying than you would think, Phil from KC. I do feel bad, especially if it's a nice day. If it's a nice weather day and I am not flying, I feel like I feel bad. I do. I'm going to be taking your questions here in the chat, right here. You can ask questions. I'll do my best to answer them. I'll be taking questions over here from the best looking, smartest people in the world who just happen to be my patrons over here on my Discord server. Thank you guys for your support. And if you would like to make sure I get your question, you can hit the $ right down here. Leave a super chat. Cost you a couple bucks. Just think of it like you're throwing a couple bucks in the hat of a busker, playing some nice music for you on the subway. Throw a couple bucks at me, I'll answer your questions. Not right now. Not right now. I'll get around to it. I will get around to it. Bastion Sonderman, good to see you. Jim Fan Hobby is here. Good to see you, Jim Fan. Krishav Shah wants to know, can the ProTech 35 do light freestyle? I mean, yeah, anything can do light freestyle. Define light freestyle. A Cinewhoop is not optimal for freestyle, but it can do freestyle. It just depends on your definition of light freestyle. So, Eminence asks in the Discord, if I want to maximize the TX16S range, what can I do? Is changing the antenna the only option? I am going to say that if you are interested in if you're flying 2.4 gigahertz like Free Sky, Fly Sky Spectrum, and you want more range, there's basically two things you could try to do. One is you could get a 2.4 gigahertz amplifier. Now, I want to be clear, I am not recommending that, because just amplifying a signal has all kinds of potential problems, not the least of which is it may not be legal depending on whether you have a ham license. But I know people, not a lot of people, but I know people who have got like a Radio Master or a Free Sky radio, and they get a 2.4 gigahertz like Wi-Fi amplifier. They run it off a separate battery, and they get a lot more range. That is a thing that people do. I don't recommend it. I think it's clunky. Because if you really want more range out of your radio, it's time to bite the bullet and go with something else. Crossfire, Tracer, Ghost, or Express LRS being the ones that I would point you towards. And the days when you would say, but they're so expensive, are gone. Because you can buy... you could buy a Crossfire receiver for $25, and that's not that much more expensive than an RXSR at 20-ish bucks. But Express LRS, you can get a Happy Model Express LRS receiver for like, what is it? I don't know. Let's look. Let's look. Boom. How much? No, this is the Naminmio. No, this is the Happy model. Where's the receiver? Where's the receiver? Here we go. $20. So the same price as a Free Sky RXSR. Okay, not as cheap as an XM Plus. Fine. But you go like, oh, should I put an external antenna on my Radio Master? What's that going to do? It's going to take your range from 2 kilometers-ish to 2.5, 3. It's not going to put you in a whole different world, right? Whereas going with something like Express LRS, Crossfire, Ghost, or even Tracer, it's a quantum leap in range, to the point where with most of them, I hesitate to say this about Tracer, but with most of them, it's so much range that you basically don't have to think about fail-safing if you don't want to. With Tracer, excuse me. Oh my, excuse me. I got for last Christmas, I got a hot sauce subscription box. My wife got it for me. And this month's box came today, and I had some of it with dinner, and now it's I'm remembering how good it was. With Tracer, I've had some times when flying Tracer at what I consider to be normal freestyle ranges, where I got RSSI low warning or an LQ low. I don't remember what the warning was. Where I was like, oh wow, interesting. Whereas with Crossfire, even when Crossfire is locked at 150 hertz, just basically never run into that situation. My video is always the limiting factor. With Ghost, with Express LRS, I don't have as much experience flying Express LRS, but those technologies, anyway, you basically don't think about range. So I would discourage you from putting an external antenna onto your 2.4 gigahertz Free Sky Fly Sky Radio Master. I would say take that time and effort and think about what it would take to get you into an Express LRS module, Crossfire, Ghost, whatever. You can do your pick. Because I just don't think there's that much advantage to putting an external antenna on a Radio Master or something like that. Not that big. So. There was somebody in the chat who said, I'm ready to buy a Sovol SV01. I just want you to confirm that it is still your pick. Yep. I still think the Sovol SV01 is a hell of a deal. There are things that you could improve about it. It still has an 8-bit main board. It doesn't come with a silent main board. Doesn't come with BL Touch. Nevertheless, if you compare it to something like, let's see. if we take the Soval SV01, like 259, $299 on Amazon. So I mean that's just the Amazon tax, I guess. $259 for the Soval SV01. What's an Ender 3 Pro going for these days? I mean, you could definitely get them on sale. $209. You're paying $60 more for the Soval, and one of the things you're getting is the dual Z-axis stepper motor, which I just added a second Z-axis motor to my Ender because after I put the Hemera on it, the Hemera was too heavy, and so it was it was sagging and binding. And the kit that I bought to put a second Z-axis stepper motor, well, let's just check. I think it was about $50. So I should have, yeah. Let's just see if that finds it. Yeah, it was something like this. It was like a $40 or a $50 kit. There's a $40 kit. So the takeaway is that if the only thing you get from the Soval is the dual Z-axis stepper motor, you're still kind of breaking even with an Ender. And that's not all you get. The Ender is a Bowden tube printer. The Soval is direct drive, so it's going to do much better with flexible filament. The Soval is a little bit bigger. Yeah, and you can do the upgrades to the Soval if you want to put a 32-bit mainboard, silent stepper motors, etc. You can do that. I will say, the nice thing about the Ender is that every question you have about it, every upgrade you might want to do, like when I put the Hemera hot end on my Ender, I was able to buy a metal mounting plate. But that mounting plate doesn't exist for the Soval because, like, nobody... I mean, there's a 3D printed mounting plate you can get for the Soval, of course, but with the Ender, it's basically anything you want to do to your Ender, there's a million tutorials, there's a million... So that is certainly something to think about. But I have to say, my Ender has been a huge hassle. I've just... after months of dicking around with it, and I treat it as a learning experience and a character building experience, because otherwise I would just cry and don't think about it too much. I've been dicking around with this Ender for months to try to get it to print as well as my Soval does, just basically right out of the box. Not quite, because there's no such thing as right out of the box with 3D printers. My Soval has been extremely good for the price, so... yeah. Aerobrat wants to know, what is the more money than time 3D printer option? No question, it's the Prusa Mark III. Without going too much in depth, the advantage of the Prusa is, number one, it is just objectively a well-designed, very refined printer, but more fundamentally, Prusa slicer and Prusa filament, you're basically buying into the whole ecosystem. And so when you want to print, you're more likely to be able to just load a profile, load the filament, and hit go, where they've controlled all the variables. But the Prusa is like $700 compared to like $200 for a really cheap printer. So, Mr. Z, if you can find a Core XY for $300, I'll be impressed. When I reviewed the Soval SV03, hi, welcome to my FPV live stream. We're going to talk about 3D printing. What can I say? When I reviewed the Soval SV03, I looked for comparable Core XY. I guess you could get a really small build volume Core XY. But here's the thing. If you're going to print tiny, tiny things, do you really need a Core XY? I mean, I know that a Core XY in theory can be faster, but if you're only printing small things, just get a small Cartesian printer, and if you want to print faster, get two of them. I could be wrong I probably am wrong about this because I'm not really an expert on 3D printing. It feels like Core XY really comes into its own because once you get past a certain size, the Cartesian build plate the unsteadiness of the Cartesian build plate really adds up and matters. And that's when you're like, oh, let's go Core XY. That's how it seems to me. Is the Prusa Mini worth it for $399? Probably. Prusa Prusa don't make no shit. Yeah. Let's see. Mr. Z is sharing with us this Two Trees Sapphire Pro Core XY. 235 by 235 by 235. That's a respectable build volume. That's bigger than the Ender. What's the Ender? I think it's 220 by 220. Something like 220 by 215, 210-ish. Where's the freaking size? Printing size, 220 by 220 by 250. So that's bigger than an Ender. Well, not on the Z-axis, but that's okay. That's something. Yeah, with an enclosure? Does it come with an enclosure for $300? That's a pretty impressive. So the thing that I would have to know is this like actually a good printer? That's the other thing. There's so many just crap printers out there. So okay, so fair enough. This is a Core XY for $300. Yes, it is. Is it actually a good printer? Don't know. Anyway. Yeah. Patio Patterson just wired up 4 motors on their quad, and they were all spinning the right direction. Woo! There you go. Oh, Voxelab. Yeah. Anyway, honestly, I have almost never printed anything that fills the build volume of my Soval or my Ender. I think the Soval is around 235 millimeters square. I'm always printing like tiny frickin' little antenna mounts and stuff. So yeah, that's a good one. The artillery, I'm not an I'm not an expert, and I have never owned an artillery, but people I talk to who seem trustworthy and knowledgeable seem like fans of artillery. Artillery seems to make good stuff at a good price. I'm pretty sure that the Rotor Riot workhorse printers are artilleries. Yeah, if I were in the market, I'd be looking at an artillery pretty heavily. Yeah, I mean, if you seriously have more money than time, just don't buy anything except a Prusa. Mr. Eddie Nunez asks, why get into 3D printing when you can just buy 3D parts from so many quality sellers? Eddie, I can speak for myself about that. There's 2 reasons. Well, 3 reasons. One reason is that, like, sometimes you just think it's fun to take up a new hobby. Okay, obviously that's not you. A second reason is time. Like, if I'm about to go on a trip and I need a GoPro mount, I don't have time to order it. I can just print it. I'm ready to go. A third is cost. Even if you take into account the price of the filament and the price of the machine, it is so much cheaper to print stuff on your own. A place like BMC 3D or Brain 3D or Race Day Quads is going to charge you $10 or $15 for a GoPro mount, maybe more, maybe $20. Well, we don't have to guess. Let's just look. Let's look. BMC 3D. Products. Hero 9 mounts. TBS Source 1 Hero 9 mount. $17. Okay? $17. That's 20 cents in filament or something. Like, it's less than $1. Now, I am in no way suggesting that that's an unfair price. I would never do that, because the hassle of running a print farm and running a business, it is 100% a fair price, even though it's only 50 cents, 20 cents in filament or whatever. But you will quickly run up the price of a 3D printer. You will quickly hit $300 in parts just buying a Hero mount every now and then. So it's just a question of money versus time, as always. And then finally, this is the fourth thing, the ability to mod things is a big deal. Like, for example, hang on. What am I doing? There we go. STL files. This right here. Hang on. Is it opening? It is opening. Hold on one second. Reason number 17 to switch from Cura to Prusa is it boots up faster. Can Prusa Slicer start fast? Yes, it can. Can Prusa Slicer start faster than Cura can load machines? F you, Cura. You failed me for the last time. This right here is a bracket that I made to hold a GoPro in the DJI goggles, so you can record the DJI goggle screen. Okay? I made this from this, which is a Fat Shark, which is an adapter someone made that adapts the Fat Shark diopter lenses to the DJI goggles. And this, where is it? There it is. This, which is a GoPro adapter for a Fat Shark HDO. So I basically sliced off this part of this, and I slammed it together with this, and I made this, and it let me record my DJI goggles. So you can't do that. You can't do that if you don't own a 3D printer. Well, I guess you can. You could have somebody else print it for you, but it'd be silly. Anyway. Cool. Yeah, I'm switching from Cura to Prusa. I'm tired of Cura. Cura's disappointed me forever. For the last time. Let's get some super chats out of the way and take some more of your questions. Super chats. Yoni Musher, thanks for a $2 super chat. Need more love in the world. Have a great stream. Thank you so much, Yoni, for the positive vibes. Andrew Hutchinson, thank you for a $5 super chat. Will we ever see axial phase brushless motors overtake the current motors used in FPV? I don't know what an axial phase brushless motor is, so I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. I don't know what that is. The gap in between the two is a line parallel to the axis of rotation. Interesting. Oh, there's the cricket. There's the cricket. I finally found him. He's out. He's on the carpet. You guys. There's been a cricket in my room forever. I'm supposed to be lucky. Axial brushless motor. It seems like the advantage of these motors is they get very flat, but is it like low power, low cost brushless DC motors, since it can be built directly on a PCB? It seems like these are not optimal for high power application. Seems like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever see these. I mean, this seems cool, but I don't see why we would see these in FPV. Cali FPV says, thank you for $5, Cali FPV. I've been hearing about BLHeli 32.8 having issues. Have you heard anything about this? Yes. Yep. BLHeli 32.8 has a bug. What's the bug? I was just listening to It's Blunty talk about this. There's a bug in 32.8 what's the bug in 32.8? Who can tell me? Who can remind me? I can't find Blunty. Where's Blunty? No. Nope, I don't know. Anybody in the Discord, can you remind me what the bug is in 32.8? I don't think it's like... The bottom line is... Oh, where were we talking about this? It was in frickin' Chris Rosser's latest video. Hang on. Issues with RPM filtering, right? Was that it? It was reporting the incorrect... Hang on. It was in the chat of Chris Rosser's video. A few days ago, a bug was discovered in the RPM reporting through bidirectional D-shot on BLHeli 32.8. There we go. Bingo. What is that? Okay. Where's the bug, though? Okay. There's a bug in RPM filtering and causes motors to get hotter. So they're working on a fix. I've been running 32.7 until they sort this out. The big advantage of 32.8 is variable PWM frequency, which isn't beneficial for every build anyway. So I've been running 32.7 anyway. So, but yes, there is a bug. Ho Operator, thanks for a $5 super chat. Where can I buy a JBF7? They're out of stock everywhere I look. I mean, they may be just out of stock, but I would start with Race Day Quads, who is the manufacturer. I mean, they're not literally their manufacturer. Yeah, in stock at Race Day Quads. There's your answer, Ho Operator. Is 32.81 actually available now, Chris Young? Have they released that, or is that still in, like, nightly? Matthias Arizaga, thank you for a $10 super chat. Does anybody have any idea why my X-rotor stack disconnects from Betaflight as soon as I connect my LiPo to the quad? Everything is on it besides the receiver. Yeah, Matthias, there's two possibilities here. What I would do is I would look to see if the lights go off on the flight controller when you plug in power. That's the first thing I would check. Does the flight controller power down when you plug in the battery? And if so, there's something going on with the voltage regulator or the wiring that is causing it to literally shut down. But another possibility is that when you power up, something like the video transmitter interferes, it wakes up and it starts sending serial communication, and something about the way you've wired it up causes it to lose the USB connection. Matthias, you should email me so we can work through this, not on a live stream, but the first thing I would check is whether the flight controller powers down when you plug in. Steve M, glad to see you here. Haven't caught a stream live in a while. Glad you're here, Steve. Glad you caught the stream. Joe Brown, thank you for a $5 super chat. Hey, JB, I had a motor die on me. What's the best way to tell if the motor, ESC, or something else is bad? So, Joe, let's start with the premise that you've smoked a motor. Okay, so you know the motor's dead. And now the question is the ESC also dead? That's the big question. There is a test you can do on an ESC where you use a multimeter and you test the FETs. And if that test shows that you have a bad FET, then you know you have a bad ESC. But there are other things that can be wrong with your ESC that are difficult to test for. It's very difficult. And the problem is, let's say you've got a bad ESC and your ESC smokes the motor. So you replace the motor and the bad ESC smokes the motor again. Right? So what do? One thing you can do is use a smoke stopper. A smoke stopper will protect you if the ESC is instantly smoking the motor as soon as you power up, but it's not going to protect you if, like, the ESC smokes the motor after plugging in the battery, like when you throttle up. So it is largely a matter of trial and error, unfortunately. It just is. Let's see here. Backyard Fun has a flight controller that only powers up when it's plugged into the PC. Now, in that case, what it usually means is that the 5-volt regulator on the flight controller is dead. It could be that the flight controller is not getting power at all. So what you want to do is test to see if the flight controller is getting VBAT, usually from the ESC through the ESC harness. And then if the flight controller is getting VBAT but it doesn't power up, it means the 5-volt regulator is dead. And the fix is usually a new flight controller. Although you can, in theory, use a different 5-volt regulator. Zach Cagesley, thank you for a $5 super chat. Doing iGal for the first time. No letters yet. Just wanted to thank you for being a sponsor. Thank you, Zach Cagesley. Yeah, I'm a sponsor for iGal. I'm putting up a couple $100 in prizes. So if you get far enough into iGal, you may win a prize from me. So congratulations. Actually, I've already given out one of the prizes. Just pretty sure. giving out one of the prizes. Mad Max wants to know if you're sucking too many amps from the 5-volt regulator. If that were true, well, no. When you plug in USB, the flight controller powers up, but none of the other 5-volt stuff powers up. Like if you're running the camera off of 5 volts. In theory, you could be overdrawing the 5-volt regulator and overheating it, but that's I don't think that's very likely in the real world. Big Oily Guy says, did you like the Rotor Risco remix? Do you want to play it? I think I saw that. Uh-huh. I don't know if this is family friendly, is it? Is it family friendly? Is it safe for my live stream? Will the Mambo work with the Rotor Risco? No failsafe. I don't know what that phrase means. What's a Rotor Risco? Big Oily Guy, I appreciate your super chat. Thank you for your $5. Yeah, see, now we're going to play music. I don't want to play music on my stream, though, and risk getting a Rotor Risco copyright strike. I'll put a link to the video, though, if anybody wants to go check it out. Boom. There we go. Thank you for your super chat, Big Oily Guy. I did see that. That's pretty funny. I know he made the music, but it's somebody else. I guess it's my content. You're not going to copy strike me for playing my own content, right? I'll copy strike you. I'll copy strike you. Yeah. Copyright. Oh. Hey, who's this person? Rosemary Vancott. What are you doing, Rosemary Vancott? You taking my video? That's my video. Wow, this is an old video, too. Wow, this was like one of the first directly FPV items I reviewed. Oh my gosh,
load.
Bardwell.
Something like this. This is the Turnigy 7-in-1 megameter. You plug your battery in one end, you plug your copter or plane in the other end, or whatever else.
Wow.
Check the tool. I'm really happy.
Why does this person upload my
plug
video?
Your battery in one end. You plug
yeah. Screw you. Uh-huh. What are we gonna do? Request video removal. Yeah, that's right. Infringing video. Oh. That's not my phone number. Thank God that's not my actual. Oh, ha! Yeah, that's my Google Voice phone number. Ha ha! That's not my real phone number. That's why I put it in there. Removal timing. Yeah, get out of here. Boom, boom, boom. Signature. Joshua Bardwell. Get out of here. You've uploaded my video. You're done. You're done, kid. I didn't private my video. Submit. Oh. I don't see the Rotor Risco up there, though. Oh, well. Yeah, that's my I have two phone numbers, my actual phone number and then this Google Voice number that I put everywhere where I don't want to leak my real phone number. So you're not going to get anywhere if you call that number, trust me. I'm not, for the record, I'm not copy striking the Rotor Risco. I'm copy striking this other channel that re-uploaded my multimeter review. Just to be clear, so everybody's following along. I'm not copy striking the Rotor Risco video. The Rotor Risco video is hilarious. Does the DJI Air unit fit in the Source 1 V4? Asks Rome Ultra. I don't know the answer to that. I think it does. I think it does. It feels to me like it does. But then again, yeah, Source 1 HD 5-inch. Is that Source 1? Is the Source 1 HD specifically stretched to hold the air unit? I feel like it probably fits. Can we just look it up? Oh! Is this a V4 or a V3? No, that's the V3. Yeah, fits in the V3. Yeah. Can we Source 1 V4? Oh, here we go. TBS Source 1 V4 maiden flight air unit. This person seems to have gotten an air unit in the Source 1 V4. Yeah, I think it fits. Yeah. There's some folks asking about this piece of news. Runcam partners with DJI on the digital FPV system. Blunty and I will be talking about this tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the FPV News. This is, of course, big news because first it was DJI. And DJI, everybody was like, DJI is closed. They will never open up to the FPV community. And then they partnered with Cadex. And there was some speculation about why they partnered with Cadex. One of the pieces of speculation, and this is pure speculation, so take it as such, people noticed that the Cadex Vista doesn't seem to have FCC Part 15 certification. And there was some speculation that DJI had released that under Cadex's name because Part 15 certification would have taken too long. And Cadex is able to kind of fly under the radar without the FAA and FCC noticing. That's pure speculation, but it does seem to fit the facts. But then they were like, okay, Cadex is the exclusive partner of DJI. And then Runcam releases their Racer 4, which is compatible. And Cadex goes, hey, you can't do that. We're exclusive. Hey, DJI, we're exclusive. Oh, we're going to lock you out. And then they didn't. And then DJI released the, Runcam released the MIPI camera. And Cadex was like, you listen now. We told you already. You need to not do that. We're going to lock you out. We mean it this time. We're going to release some firmware that locks you out. And then DJI was like, actually, no, we're not. And then DJI was like, actually, Runcam, come to the table, Runcam. So now it's Runcam and Cadex. I mean, that's good for us. Obviously, that's good for us, right? The more, the better. It is interesting for people who say DJI is so proprietary. I don't like DJI because they're proprietary. Well, now there are two companies making the air unit in the Vista. And by making, I'm like, I would bet so much money that the actual circuit boards are made by DJI. And if anything, they're assembled by Cadex or Runcam. And maybe not even that. I don't know. But I guarantee you, I feel so confident. I shouldn't guarantee because I can't be 100% sure. I feel so confident that that Cadex is not the one actually assembling these, like manufacturing these circuit boards. The quality is very high. That's a cricket. That's a cricket. Crickets are good luck. Haven't you heard? Where'd he go? Yeah, there's a cricket. Crickets are good luck. Yeah. That's not a bug. That's not like, ew, there's a bug. There's spiders, super bros. Crickets, super bros. Bees, yeah, bees are pretty cool. I mean, I wouldn't want them living in my house, but they're pretty cool. No, crickets are not. That's just like, that's practically a pet. So, yeah, that's Cricket FPV. I'm just glad it finally came out from wherever it was hiding. It's been chirping in my room for like the last 3 days. So I think it's really cool that Runcam and Caddx are going to be working on this. I don't think there's a lot of room for improvement in the air unit itself. I mean, obviously, you'd always like to see improvement, but there is room for improvement in the cameras. For example, the Caddx Polar being a low light camera. However, somebody needs to start making proper 120 FPS cameras and stop giving us these crappy high latency cameras, high quality cameras. I want, like, bring back the Nebula Nano Pro, please. Bring back the Vista camera, please. Duck My Squeeze says, I want to fly Sharkbite, but I feel like there's no point buying it unless we have goggles with a digital module bay. Everything else is 100% janky. I want a module bay that has HDMI and quad antenna connectors so you can use top-mounted SMA and front inbuilt patches. Duck My Squeeze, have you seen the Scout? The Scout HD? There we go. Fat Shark Scout HD. This is the new... This is the new goggle. It is pre-order. It's pre-order only. It hasn't. It's not released yet. It's a Fat Shark Sharkbite goggle. $250. I have been told that this is not the final pricing. That is That's like beta tester pricing. So we'll see what the final price is going to be. But that's basically the same price as the Sharkbite module. Has no analog receiver and no HDMI. So hopefully as a beta product, the final product, it would be so great if it had an analog bay. So you could put a rapid fire in it and have this be your only goggle. Oh my God, it's going to be a box goggle. A lot of people aren't going to want to carry around 2 sets of goggles for Sharkbite and analog. So just buy Sharkbite, huh? 1080p screen. Hopefully the final ones do have an HDMI out. Don't know. But that's very interesting. Getting very interesting. PVT stands for Product Verification Test, says Brian Ladmiral. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Yep. I feel like I like the fact that HD0, not HD0, freaking, I'm so close to having it. Who is it? Divimath. There we go. I like the fact that Divimath is taking a more active role in developing this technology and not just waiting for Fat Shark to drive things. Divimath working with Runcam to release an updated camera, for example. I think that the potential of Sharkbite is that a lot of companies can be making a product for it, and when Fat Shark is the only one doing it, it's not living up to its full potential. But the other thing is that at the end of the day, the video transmitter, I feel like Divimath is really, I mean, that's tough to say. I was going to say Divimath is driving it, but I've also heard a lot of stories of Fat Shark pushing Divimath to do things better, differently. So they may be equally driving it. I guess it doesn't seem to me like, it seems to me like it's very plausible that Runcam, Foxeer, Caddx are going to come out with Sharkbite cameras that they develop. But it doesn't seem like everybody's going to come out with a Sharkbite video transmitter. Just because I've seen how hard it's been for Fat Shark to work and develop one. And it seems like once somebody is able to sort of crack that nut, they're going to want to just sort of piggyback off each other. And Mr. Eddie Nunez wants to know if I've flown the TBS Mambo radio. I have. In fact, you may be able to see it back on the bench behind me. Maybe not. It's back there. I have flown the TBS Mambo. What do you want to know about it? Divimath is sending out the first batch of about 100 of these new Runcam cameras to people. They had a QC issue, and instead of what they've done is they're going to send the first batch out just as beta test to people for free instead of trying to sell them. The downside is, of course, now it's going to be longer before it releases, but... Which Mambo do I have? The Ethics or the regular one? Asks One IFPV. I have the regular one. I didn't think it was worth paying whatever $30 more to get a kickstand, some grip tape, and some silicone switch covers. I think those are the things the Ethics comes with. So I have the standard one. The Mambo. I think so what are we going to say about the Mambo? I think the build quality on the Mambo, like the build quality of the Tango is very good. You hold the Tango, it feels very solid, especially compared to other $140 radios. The build quality on the Tango, it doesn't feel as premium. I'm not sure why that is. The gimbals feel good. TBS has done a very good job with the gimbals. Same thing on the Tango 2. Gimbals, the sticks were shorter than I'm used to. When I did my first test flights on the Mambo, I was a little uncomfortable with the length of the sticks. However, you obviously can extend the sticks, so that's easy. The Mambo, what does it come in at? What's the price for the Mambo? $140. Same as the Tango 2. I mean, compared to something like... If you compare it to something like a Radio Master TX16S, those are going for like $180 right now. The Mambo comes in at $140. When you consider you're getting a tracer module, which is a $60 module, so you're basically paying $90-ish for the Mambo plus the tracer module. It's very good for a $90 radio. They've done a very good job of figuring out where to put their value. It doesn't feel like a super premium radio, but it will be a good radio for a lot of people. The big elephant in the room about the Mambo is that they put tracer in it and not Crossfire. And it's an elephant in the room because, well, for one thing, so many more people have Crossfire receivers than tracer. So a lot of people out there who have an existing fleet and haven't converted over to tracer are like, well, this is clearly not for me. The other thing is, and this is just a characteristic of tracer that bugs me, is that tracer, it only has the ability to use the FLRC modulation at the 250 hertz packet rate, which is the fastest, lowest latency packet rate. Fine, that's great. But it doesn't have exceptional range compared to something like Ghost Express LRS, which also use 2.4 gigahertz, but which use LoRa modulation to get more range. And you can't get the same packet rates and data. You can't have everything. But with Express LRS or Ghost, you can pick where you want to be. You can say, I want a 150 hertz packet rate and get like less range, or I want a 250 hertz packet rate and get more range. You can pick. And Tracer doesn't let you pick. And I can only think that there's a marketing reason why they do that. Because the technology in Tracer, 100%, they could release a firmware update tomorrow, and Tracer could do exactly what Ghost does, exactly what Express LRS does, 250, or they could do low raw and get way more range at a lower packet rate at the expense of latency. But it's so weird to me that TBS doesn't let you decide. They just say, no. If you don't like it, get Crossfire. Express LRS 100% could release firmware that you can flash to your Mambo and would put Express LRS on the Mambo or in your tracer module. And I think if they do that, a lot of people who bought the Mambo are going to be very, very tempted. Because when you fly Crossfire or Ghost or Express LRS, for the most part, you do not think about failsafing at all. You will lose your video before you failsafe almost every time. And then if you do like get low LQ or something, you're like, wow, that was weird. What happened? Is my equipment broken? When you fly tracer, sometimes you can put yourself in a situation where you're starting to lose video and when you're starting to lose LQ or get an LQ warning and you still have video and you have to turn around. It's the exception. It's not the rule, but it is there. And so there are going to be times and people who would rather have more latency and more range. And with tracer, you just can't do it. So that to me, like, just do it. TBS, just do it. Just open up the firmware. Just do it. You can do it. It's good for your customers. That's what I don't get. 100% Tracer could do this today. 100% it would be good for their customers. And 100% it would absolutely take a bite out of their competition. And they don't do it. And I don't know why. One IFPV is asking about Crossfire V3 and Crossfire Shot. Those two things are apples and oranges. Crossfire Shot simply means that the radio firmware is synchronized with the module in a way that didn't used to be true. Crossfire Shot is not a new protocol. When I did my Control Link Roundup, it was Crossfire, Tracer, Ghost, Express LRS, and people said, what about Crossfire Shot? No, Crossfire Shot is not a protocol. All it means is that the heartbeat pulse between the module and the radio is synchronized, so the latency is lower. That's all it means. Okay? Crossfire Light Module says Crossfire Shot. Oh, I see. One IFPV, I take it back. I see what you're asking now. So Crossfire V3 is an update. So Crossfire Shot just means that you're using Crossfire, I guess V2, but with synchronization. It is not a new protocol. It's just Crossfire with synchronization between the radio and the module. Okay? Crossfire V3 is a new update to the Crossfire protocol that is coming out, and one of the things that it adds, I believe, is 500 hertz support for 500 hertz sampling of the sticks, which right now there are Express LRS and Ghost can run at 500 hertz rates, but since you're not sampling the sticks at 500 hertz, it doesn't matter. You're not actually getting any information into those packets. So Crossfire V3 will have the ability to do 500 hertz, and the thing is that you also then need a version of OpenTX that samples the sticks at 500 hertz, which I don't. Anyway, it's all moving towards 500 hertz stick sampling. That's the bottom line. Yeah, Wesley Vardy in the Discord server is talking about that Mambo being the perfect handset for Express LRS. It has internal transmitter with SPI, internal antenna, a 1-watt power amplifier. He says they're working on support for Express LRS in the TBS Mambo right now. Yep. Wesley says this is what I get for talking and not reading the Discord. It's coming. Tracer internal module is flashable to ExpressLRS. That's the thing. TBS needs to get ahead of this, because I would rather, sorry, ExpressLRS devs, cover your ears. ExpressLRS is so freaking cool. Uncover your ears for the nice part. It's also kind of a pain in the ass. The compiling and the flashing. No, we've made it as easy as possible. You can flash via pass-through. You can flash via Wi-Fi. See, it's not a pain in the ass. It's kind of a pain in the ass. Because with Crossfire and Ghost, there's like 3 different receivers out there, and they just put the firmware in the module. And so to update your firmware, you just bind. It updates the firmware. You're done. With ExpressLRS, it's like, okay, I gotta pick which receiver I've got and which module I've got, and then am I flashing via Wi-Fi or am I flashing via pass-through? And you compile it, and then you end up with a folder on your hard drive. This is not that big a deal. But I'm just whining, so take this with a grain of salt. You end up with a folder on your hard drive that has all your firmwares in it. And this is the one for Happy Model EP2400RX via Wi-Fi. And God forbid you accidentally flash the wrong one, because then you brick your receiver and you can only recover it with a programmer. I'm just saying. If ExpressLRS releases firmware for the TBS Mambo, I will immediately change my Mambo over to ExpressLRS and never look back. But if TBS were to give me the option of using LoRa on the Mambo, maybe I wouldn't. And I think I'm not alone there. I knew. Sorry, Wesley. In before Crossfire authentication error. Yep. Nope. That's a bug. That's a pain in the ass too. Everything is a pain in the ass in its own way, but don't act like ExpressLRS buying a firmware updating isn't a little bit of a pain in the ass. Come on. You can't point the finger. You could point the finger and go, yeah, but that's also a pain in the ass. No, you're right. The Crossfire authentication error is also a pain in the ass. And nothing is perfect. Anyway, I love what the ExpressLRS devs are doing. I will be so thrilled the day they make it possible to run ExpressLRS on a tracer module, especially the Mambo. Because in my opinion, that's what TBS should have done from the beginning. And I don't know why they didn't. And I feel like whatever reason TBS had for not doing that, I would, if they told me what it really was, it would like, okay, we're going to tell you the truth this time. Like, they've said why they did it, and I don't believe them. I think there's another reason that they're not saying, and I think it's probably dumb. Why would you not do something that's good for the customers? That is, right now it feels like they wouldn't have a lot. I don't know, development effort. I don't know. Anyway. Is the Cricket move? He's on the move? How's it going, Cricket? Yeah. TBS needs to improve Tracer's jitter, says UAV Tech. It's okay, but it's nothing to write home about. UAV Tech, I'm still waiting for you to test the new Ghost firmware to see if they fix their jitter. I know, we talked about it this morning. I'm just shouting into the world. Has anybody seen this Mr. Steele video where he claims that Tracer has more latency if you're on higher output? Like, can that be true? UAV Tech is going to test it as well, and then we'll know. Yeah, get on it, UAV Tech. Get on it. License to Drive says, must be gutting. Making Tracer and then someone comes out with code for cheap receivers that's as good or better for free because it's open source. I mean, I debate. I would debate the argument that Express LRS is just as good for cheaper because they're different products. Express LRS is an incredible control link, but a lot of people are going to pick Crossfire or Ghost because they are just easier to live with in some ways. Once again, cue the Express LRS devs saying that's not true. I mean, if I were to make a video, well, I have made these videos. If I make a video about how to update the firmware on a Ghost receiver and then bind it, I could make that a 5-minute video if I really wanted to. I could not in any way make how to update the firmware on Express LRS receiver and bind it. There's no way that could be a 5-minute video, no matter how you slice it. I mean, that's just a fact. Some people are going to be tempted by that. So Express LRS is there. It is a wonderful, inexpensive option for people. It has capabilities that the others don't offer, and I love it for what it is, and I love it for the ways that it pushes Immersion RC and TBS to think outside their own box. Anyway. I did a range test. I did a range test the other day using the EP2 receiver with the ceramic antenna. Let's see, where's that? Here we go. Let's see here. I do not want to have audio for you guys because it's going to be just in your right ear. So this is a Diatone Roma F5 with an EP2 receiver and ceramic antenna. 250 milliwatts, 250 hertz. Wes, this is not a range test. I should say it is a extremely informal, total bullshit range test. Wesley Vardy is in the Discord server. He does real range tests. This is just me screwing around. Nevertheless, I was like, well, it's because this ceramic antenna goes inside. Hang on, I'll show you. Hang on. Where is it going to be? How am I going to find this clip? Can I find this clip? Can we see where I mounted the antenna? Oh, you guys can't see. Hang on. Let me give you the monitor. I guess, I don't know if you can see, if you're going to be able to see where I mounted the dang antenna. It's right in here above the video transmitter, though. And no, I flew this range test. I didn't walk it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's see here. So here we go. We can watch the LQ here. I did not fly up in the sky because I did not want the quad to, I'm reviewing this quad. I didn't want to break it if I fail-safed. So we immediately started getting RSSI low because I didn't change the RSSI threshold. So just ignore that. But we can watch the LQ. So here I am down near the ground. And you guys seeing my actual, yeah, you are. So I got about as far as I sometimes get on FreeSky. But this is, of course, 250 hertz. And right about here, it started to drop down into the 70s. And I was like, oh, I wasn't actually sure what the threshold was. What's the LQ threshold? What's the LQ threshold? They say the LQ drops off rapidly. So I got about this far before I chickened out and turned around, which it's interesting because on a regular antenna, you would just go bajillions. You would go really far. 0? That's weird. That can't be right. So my conclusion was the ceramic antenna is like acceptable for, if you would be okay with free sky, you'll be okay with the ceramic antenna. That's how I read it. We know, Wes says, I've seen LQ in the single digits for my long range tests. But how flyable was that, Wes? I mean, if you're LQ in the single digits, you can't really fly that except if you're doing high altitude. Well, you're not doing proximity flying at single digit LQ. There would just be so many bad packets. It doesn't seem like it could be flyable. But you're saying that LQ in the single digits, the link will still hold in and get some percent of the packets through. Okay. He says 70 is heaps. So I could have probably gone a little further. Yeah, maybe I should rerun the test. It's not really a range test, so it does. Now that I've finished reviewing, I've finished the Diatone Roma F5 review, now I care less about crashing it and ruining it. Jim Sanders, thank you for a $10 super chat. I would like to flash Emu Flight on the FPV Cycle 1S AIO, but there's no target. I've seen a hex. Can you send me in the right direction? Jim Sanders, there's 2 directions I would send you. One is the Emu Flight Discord server. I believe there's an Emu Flight Discord server. And 2 is that's probably where you need to go. I don't think that FPV Cycle is going to be able to help too much because I'm not sure they would keep up with that. Midwest RC, thank you for a $10 super chat. I'm a few months getting into the hobby. I have a TBS Source 1 V4 set up as analog. A buddy let me see his DJI goggles, and I can't make up my mind if I want to stay analog or digital. If you flew the DJI goggles and you're not convinced, then probably stick with analog. I mean, DJI is super expensive. What makes DJI make sense is that people put it in their face and they're like, oh my God, this is so good. It may be that you need to experience the pain of analog a little longer before you could really appreciate what DJI brings to the table. It may be that you just, it's just not for you. If you have the money, then DJI is very, very good. And most people who fly it prefer it to analog, except for some special cases like racing. However, right now, DJI is out of stock. In a lot of places, it's very difficult to buy. You could buy analog VTXs. If one's out of stock, buy a different one. But DJI is difficult to get these days. So maybe for a little while, stick with analog. Is there a performance advantage to using an F4 over an F3 flight controller? Asks Nick Hayard. Nick, Betaflight no longer supports F3s. So if you want to run the latest version of Betaflight, which you probably should, then you want an F4. I Am Destructo Man says, what's the best latency of any system? The truth is that Express LRS, Ghost, and Tracer all have extremely low latency down in this, let's say, certainly sub 6 second, maybe sub 4 second-ish range. They all have latency in the 4 to 6 second range. The big question that is worth asking is how consistent is their signal? How much jitter does it have? Because Express LRS has very, very low jitter and very consistent packet timings. And some people would argue that once you get... When we went from 50 milliseconds latency to 25 milliseconds, some people said Who could even tell the difference? And they were wrong. They were stupid. You could totally tell the difference between 50 and 25 milliseconds. It totally matters. When you get down into the 4 to 6 millisecond range, I'm comfortable saying that that difference is really irrelevant. The difference between 3 and 6 milliseconds, now we're into hardly anyone would notice. But UAV Tech has made the argument, and I agree with him, that consistency of packet timing starts to matter, both from a feel perspective, but also from a perspective of what is the flight controller doing with the data. And Express LRS has amazingly low jitter. Ghost had amazingly low jitter in a recent firmware, but then it was a beta firmware, and then they changed something and it got worse. Now they say they've got it back down again, and UAV Tech is testing it, perhaps at this very moment. Tracer and Crossfire, I think, don't have spectacularly good jitter. I think that's we can look at UAV Tech. We can look at UAV Tech's test results. Where did he make this post? Oh, that's a different thing. UAV Tech. Well, it's just like, there it was. That was it. That was the video. Low latency versus frame rate consistency. So he's got a video here about, this is an older video. It doesn't take into account the latest firmwares, talking about low latency versus frame rate consistency. Definitely worth looking at. And then if we go to his videos feed, where is it? Testing end-to-end and jitter. That's the one. So this is the latest information, and he's actually got this linked to a PDF. Why would we watch a video when we can just read a PDF? Am I right? So this is the good stuff right here. And you can see, hang on. You can see if we zoom in, like down here at the bottom, we're in the range of 3.8 to 4.3 milliseconds. And we can see the amount of jitter as well as the latency. So here's Express LRS with both low latency and low jitter. And here's TBS Tracer with similar latency to Express LRS, but far more jitter. And Ghost also having a little more latency, between 4 and 4.1 milliseconds. So, like, who freaking cares? And the jitter results. So, anyway, you can check that out. I'll put a link in the chat if you want to check that out. Yep, linking it right now. Thank you to UAV Tech for his work on this. And by the way, for the record, he's not just looking at packet rate. He's looking at the actual end-to-end latency from stick to receiver. But, like, seriously though, on some level, who frickin' cares? Right? Like, if we look, here is Ghost, Express LRS, and Tracer, and they're down in the 4 to 4. Who cares? They're all right around 4 milliseconds. Maybe if you care about jitter, fine. But which is the lowest latency? Doesn't freaking matter. It's a dead heat. And up here, we have some more typical protocols. Oh my God! They're around 6 to 7 milliseconds. Wow, that's so much! Except for some reason, Express LRS has these big spikes. Well, it's not good. But here's Crossfire. Anyway, you can read the chart yourself. Down here are the absolute lowest. So the absolute lowest are down here, which is Ghost Race 500 and Express LRS 500 Hertz. There is no point in using these today because you're not sampling the sticks at 500 hertz. And in the case of Express LRS, uses Crossfire, it doesn't run at 500 hertz on the wire. But the absolute lowest today are Ghost and Express LRS at 500 hertz. Oh, interesting. I am man bored. FPV says the spikes are telemetry transmitting. No, that can't be true. It says telemetry off. It says telemetry off right here. Maybe it's still telemetry transmissions, so, though. I don't know. Anyway. MPFPV in the Discord wants to know, how many packs do you reckon I could charge with a 200 watt-hour lead-acid battery, with every 6S pack being 22 watt-hours? You can't just divide it by 9x. Yeah, exactly. So, MPFPV, I want to start by saying that I am not an expert on lead-acid batteries. I will probably get some of these numbers wrong. I like lipos, I just know, but lead-acid is not my bread and butter. So, I believe that assuming you have a deep cycle lead-acid battery, it is best to keep it over 50% capacity. And it is absolutely necessary to keep it over 80% capacity. Okay? So let's say that you're going to live on the edge and take it down to 80% capacity, even though you know that'll reduce your cycle life somewhat. So we take 200 watt hours and we multiply by 80% and we get 160 watt hours. Now, the other thing about lead acid batteries is that the faster you pull the current out of them, the less amp hours or milliamp hours or watt hours you get out of them. And that is also true for lithium batteries, but it's less true. It is more a case with lead acid batteries. So in a way, you couldn't know, because we haven't specified how fast you're pulling them. You're pulling the current. But a simple thing to do is to say a 22 watt hour battery, you're not actually going to run it all the way down to 0. So let's say you're pulling 22. Let's say you're taking 80% of that. Let's say you're taking 17 watt hours out of each battery. And you could just take 160 watt hours, which is 80% of your lead acid battery, divide by 17, and you get about 9 batteries. I Am Destructive Man points out that you also have to take a little bit off for the DC conversion. Destructive Man says to take 25% off. I think 25% is a little conservative. I mean, I feel like 10 to 15%, but yeah, you're going to lose a little bit to your DC to DC voltage conversion and balance charging. So, excuse me. Realistically, I feel like, the number says 9-ish. Realistically, probably at least 5 or 6. There you go. Cali FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. I was recently flying with a group of DJI pilots. I was the only one with analog. Pleb. I was getting blown out being on different channels. What's the fix for this? Okay, Callie, the first thing to know is that an analog pilot standing too close to a DJI pilot will get blasted. Not quite no matter what channel they're on, but the DJI goggles also transmit. They don't just receive. So when you're using analog, you can stand in a cluster with the other pilots and it doesn't matter. But when you're using DJI, all of the pilots need to separate from each other because the goggles are also transmitting. The other thing is that the DJI pilots need to stay off your channel and away from your channel. So the simplest thing to do is to put you on race 1, and then the DJI pilots all stay on like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you very much, MPFPV, for this graphic. That is super helpful. Here's the graphic. This is a frequency chart, and you can see the DJI channels and how they overlap with like raceband channels. Notice that the DJI channels 6, 7, and 8 don't go in the order you would think. So put yourself on race 1. Put the DJI pilots on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's so freaking easy for them to change. And then don't stand too close to them and you'll probably be okay. That's what you should do. I've been in that situation, and like sometimes you still see a little bit of the streaks in your video when a DJI pilot is up, but for the most part, it's fine. License to Drive says link that channel picture here. Sure. License to Drive, that's not your chart, is it? It's a very similar chart. But it's not your chart. Interesting. Looks very similar. UAV Tech is doing the Ghost Race 500 latency test right now. Oh, Ciati's here. Ciati wasn't here yesterday because he was on a movie set making a movie. Thank you, Dan636 says, love all the content you make, brother. Keep it up. Thank you, Dan. Ben T, thank you for a $10 super chat. Somebody needs to design open source hardware that runs all protocols. This is the era of software-defined radio. Just license whatever code you want on it. Yeah, Ben, there's some truth. The downside of a software-defined radio is that it is sort of a master of everything, so it's more expensive, right? If you look at the chipset used, the Semtech chipset that's used in Tracer and Ghost and so forth, and ExpressLRS, you know, that chip, I mean, does that chip have patented technology in it? I wouldn't be surprised to learn that it did. You're not going to get something like that on a software-defined radio. They've got it built to do what it does. Yeah. I mean, there's a place for specialized hardware. If you look at what DJI is doing, for example, DJI has custom, are they ASICs? I think they're ASICs. DJI has custom ASICs in their goggles to do the heavy lifting of the encoding, the video encoding. That's the only way they could get it down to a latency that's low enough that it's manageable. So you could try to do that with a general purpose processor, but it's going to be a lot more energy intensive and cost intensive. I think there's definitely a place for a software-defined radio, but that place is where you need a generic tool. Like, people use software-defined radio to listen to different and troubleshoot and investigate different radio protocols. But if you know what you want to do is have an RC control link, then why would you don't need a software-defined radio. However, the chipset used for Ghost and Tracer and so forth is very adaptable, and you probably know this, Ben. If you're into software-defined radios, you're probably already, you're probably an RF nerd. But like, it's very programmable in what kind of, how much bit rate versus how much range and interference resistance you get. So it's software definable in some sense. Yeah. Alrighty. Ben T says, I'm a ham and I run SDR, software-defined radio, on my station. Yeah, software-defined radio is great for hobbyists. It's great for troubleshooters and investigators. But when you know you have a specific job that you want to accomplish, and you want to accomplish it as cheaply as possible, software-defined radio isn't the right solution. All right, UAV Tech is ready to release the results. Immersion RC Ghost Race 500 mode had extremely low latency. Then they released, it's in beta, they released another firmware update. The jitter went all the way, it was all over the place. And Tony Cake has said that they released a new beta firmware that gets the jitter down below 10 milliseconds, is what he said. UAV Tech says, you're ready for this. He's going to let us know. Any minute now. Any minute now. Drum roll, please. Has Ghost done it? Is Ghost down in ExpressLRS range? Oh, he's giving us a picture. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I mean, Express LRS is still a little bit faster. Just a little bit faster. Less than a tenth of a millisecond. Less than 100 microseconds faster, but still a little bit faster. But it looks like they fixed the jitter issue. Good for you. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. I don't think anybody would care. No, I'm gonna rephrase that. I don't think Tony Cake would care as much about this jitter if Express LRS hadn't been out there making him look bad. Now, I know that Tony has been focused on racing and has been focused on not being the lowest latency link, but also being a consistent link with good jitter. He has focused on that from the beginning with Ghost, and that's been a selling point of Ghost. So he absolutely cares about jitter and not getting dropped packets. That's been a place he's tried to differentiate. But I just think that my gut feeling is that when Ghost was released and it had like pretty good latency and jitter was okay, and then Express LRS comes out and Express LRS is just like poof with the jitter. People look at that and they go, oh, we can do that. Yeah. I don't think that chart would exist without Express LRS. Yeah. So kudos to Express LRS team for raising the bar, and kudos to Immersion RC for rising to the challenge. That's what I would say. All right. FPV Junkie asks, you were talking about how they can or are working on getting Express LRS on the TBS Tracer and Mambo modules. Are they working on getting Express LRS on the Tracer receivers as well? Well, that's an interesting question, FPV Junkie. I don't know the answer. It stands to reason that if you can flash the module, you can also flash the receiver. However, the module is pretty easy to flash just by plugging into the back of the radio, right? But the receivers are often not as easy to flash. It depends, and I don't know the answer. If anybody from the Express LRS team is around, are you also working on getting Express... yeah, there we go. Wesley Vardy in the Discord says Tracer receivers are harder because they are PIC32 rather than STM32. So they have a different processor on them that makes it a little harder to get the firmware on there. UAV Tech has another image for us to enjoy. Let's see what we got here. Express LRS 2.4 gigahertz, 4.5, 5.6 end to end. Ghost Race 500, not 4.5, 4 and 5, 5 and 6. It's a histogram. Ghost is faster. Are you saying Ghost is faster? That didn't look like what the chart said. But the chart says Ghost is slower. I'm so confused. Why is Ghost 500 not actually 500 hertz? It's 500-ish. Remember, hang on. No, back up. Remember, we're measuring end-to-end latency. 500 hertz is the packet timing. One packet is sent 500 times a second. End-to-end latency is how long they take to get from point to point. Well, UAV Tech, Mark Spatz, I'm confused, man. Tell me if I'm reading this wrong. It looks to me like Express LRS is 2 milliseconds and Ghost is closer to 2.1. So this chart seems to show Ghost being slower, while this chart shows Ghost being faster. What am I missing, dude? Anyway, really cool. Thank you for doing that testing. Brendan Simons, thank you. Brendan Simons, thank you for $5 Canadian. My new build quad idles rough, low throttle RPM variations. Changing PIDs did nothing. Lowering PWM frequency to the bottom helped. What do I try next? Does it do that while if you arm and just sit on the ground? Because that's pretty normal. If it's doing that while you're in the air and hovering, the first thing I would want to know is whether you have too much vibration getting to the flight controller, getting to the gyro. Make sure the flight controller is soft mounted. Oh, UAV Tech. Are you saying that this chart is the packet rate and this chart is the end-to-end latency? I see. So this is just showing jitter and packet rate, packet timing, whereas this chart is showing end-to-end latency. I got it. I'm caught up now. So Brendan Simons, I would definitely want to make sure that the flight controller is well isolated. Changing PWM frequency, I'm not sure. If you were using BLHeli 32.8 with variable PWM frequency, don't do that. Use 32.7. It would be really helpful to hear the rough idle because there's various things that it could be doing that aren't coming through in your description. So if you've messed with here's what I should try next, Brendan Simons. In the Betaflight PID tuning tab, go to the filters tab and move the filter sliders to the left. Move them down to say 0.8 or 0.7. If that helps, then that means that your issue is gyro noise and vibration. NJ Willie is using variable PWM frequency on 32.8 per Chris Rosser's last video. That works well for some people, but not for others. Just be aware that there's this issue in 32.8. If you're using RPM filtering, there is a bug in 32.8 where the RPM, you get hot motors because the RPM reported by the ESC is not correct. So I personally am sticking with 32.7 because variable PWM frequency, it didn't make every quad fly better, and it made some quads fly worse, and I was just like, F it. I'm not bothering with it. And this is apparently why. Because of this bug that causes RPM filtering to not work correctly. Let's see here. They're working. If 32.8.1 is out, 32.8.1 is supposed to fix the bug. So look for 32.8.1, but I'm not actually sure if 32.8.1 is out yet. Is the cricket still around? Where's he at? I don't see him. Or her. Broken Prop FPV says, I have the Diatone Mambo Ultra 1000 milliwatt VTX with the Ultra antenna. I'm getting some lines in my video just 10 meters around me. Could it be because I'm flying near concrete? Probably not. At that distance, your signal strength should be so high that you shouldn't really be having any environmental factors affecting you. Unless you're like standing right next to a DJI device or a Wi-Fi access point. So probably the lines in the video are an internal thing like electrical noise from your motors. Tom Alperin says 32.8.1 is available as test code. Okay, so 32.8.1 has not yet actually come out. So I would go back to 32.7 for now. Quad Doc wants to know what's the best setting for Crossfire for mid-range flying. I'm on 915 megahertz and power at 500 milliwatts. I love to fly Crossfire at locked at RF mode 2, 150 hertz. I find that you can get to the edge of a typical 5 gigahertz video transmitter at 500 milliwatts without a problem. So I've never fail-safed and I've only rarely gotten LQ warnings when flying with locked mode 2 at 800 milliwatts or 1 watt video transmitter. And I like the lower latency and the consistent latency. Depending on what you define as mid-range, to be fair. If mid-range to you is 20 kilometers, then you may not be able to do it at locked RF mode 2. The other thing to keep in mind is if you are using Crossfire and you're locked in RF mode 2, your LQ can go all the way down to 40. The LQ threshold of 80 is for RF mode 1. In RF mode 2, you can go all the way down to 40, and that's straight from TBS. So I'm not BSing you there. Wrong Way FPV wants to know, is RPM filtering beneficial on a 12S X class? Wrong Way, I don't have a ton of experience with big X class builds. So if Paul Nurkala or Neil Whiteley or one of those guys who flies the big quads tells you otherwise, you listen to them. My gut feeling is that RPM filtering is more helpful on those bigger quads because the lower the motor RPM, the lower the frequency of the motor noise, and therefore the harder it is to filter it with a low pass. So I think that RPM filtering should be more helpful on those big builds, but I don't have enough experience to say that like with confidence. Yeah, Bad for Life raises a good point. The question is bidirectional D-Shot supported on the APD ESC that most big builds use? I think they have a firmware that supports it, but they're not shipping it yet. You have to update the firmware to support it. Does LQ apply at all for a FreeSky link? Asks DTFPV. So LQ link quality is it's first thing to know about it is that it's a synthetic metric. So when we talk about signal strength as measured with decibels, dB or dBm, decibel milliwatts, we are talking about an objective measure of signal energy. If I say I'm transmitting 1 watt of power, that's an objective amount of energy, of power rather, not energy and power aren't the same thing. That's an objective amount of power. Just like if I said I have a pound of apples, there's no debate about how much apples that is. It's a pound, right? LQ is a synthetic metric. A way to think about LQ is as the percent of good packets that get through. So if your LQ is 100, then 100% of your data is getting through. And as you get further and further out, you get some lost or corrupted packets coming between the transmitter and the receiver, and your LQ goes down. But the thing to keep in mind is, so LQ exists in every control link because every control link will have like more corrupted packets as you get further and further away and the signal gets weaker. But not all control links calculate LQ the same way, and not all control links report LQ. So FreeSky doesn't report LQ as far as I know. FreeSky ACCST, certainly not. Access, I'm not sure about. I think they don't, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So when flying with FreeSky, when flying with Spectrum, there is no like LQ because they just don't report it. It still exists, but the receiver is not really giving you that information, and so you can't really get it. With Crossfire and so forth, LQ is reported by the receiver. And you can always, like Betaflight has the ability to approximate LQ, because Betaflight, of course, also can tell when there's missing packets, right? But Betaflight's approximate LQ is not as useful as the LQ that comes straight from the receiver. One IFPV says, well, if they're not receiving the packets, how do they know they're missing? Do packets have sequence numbers? I mean, one IFPV, in theory, you could put sequence numbers in packets, but no, I don't think they do that. I don't think anybody does that because there's not a reliable protocol. It doesn't have acknowledgments. And the data in the packets is so precious that they wouldn't waste space in the packets transmitting sequence numbers. At least that I would be shocked to find out that any high-speed control protocol was sequencing the packets. But how do they know the packets are missing? Well, I mean, I don't know how they do it. And if an ExpressLRS dev wants to tell me how they do it, that would be great. One way they could do it is that the receiver starts to detect the beginning of a packet and then it doesn't get the end. And it's like, oh, this was a missing packet. Another way is that the packets are supposed to be coming at a consistent 500 hertz, 250 hertz. So if you know the packets are coming at 250 hertz, you can detect when there was a break in the sequence and approximate how many were missing. Right? Think about it. If I know I'm getting 500 packets a second, and in 1 second I get 400 packets, I know there were 100 missing packets, approximately. Wesley says ExpressLRS does have a sequence counter and a timer. For real, Wesley? How are you, I mean, like, is the sequence counter, like, rotating? How are you sequencing the packets? I mean, like, you would need the sequence, you would be spending so many bits on the sequence counter, given how frugal ExpressLRS with their bits in their packets. I'm kind of surprised that you're spending bits on a sequence counter. Oh, I see. So Wesley says that in ExpressLRS, both the transmitter and the receiver count to 255. And then they cycle. So you're spending 8 bits to get and I guess they just cycle back through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 255, 1, or 0, 0. Interesting. And that lets you tell when the packets are lost. That's interesting. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that you're spending a byte. I'm surprised that function is so valuable that you're willing to spend a byte, 1 byte per packet on it. Is there a value to that other than calculating LQ? Interesting. He's going to get back to me when the chat catches up. Jason Kennedy, the frequency hopping is handled down at the radio level. If you've got frequency hopping, that's being handled at the radio level, not up at the packet level. William Barlow wants to know, what is the sensor lost warning I'm getting, and what does it mean with TBS Crossfire? Sensor lost means that OpenTX, the controller, did not see the sensor data getting reported and timed out. That's a tough one to know whether that's a Crossfire issue or whether it is an OpenTX issue. I Am Destructo Man, I'm not sure about that. I Am Destructo Man says 1 byte in a control packet has got to be a drop in the ocean. I'm not sure about that because, think about the fact that ExpressLRS, if you want to go 500 hertz, you can't do telemetry because the radio protocol can only send so many bits per second, and it's not a very big number. And so we've got situations where they are giving up telemetry to get more data throughput. It feels like they don't have a huge amount of data per packet. Like a Crossfire packet, how big is it? It's something like 50 or 60 bytes. I don't know that for sure. I've heard that number thrown around though. And they're like, oh, Crossfire packets are so big. They're like 60, 65 bytes, 50 bytes or whatever. How big is an Express LRS data packet? Can you even look that up? No, I don't know about that. I'm not sure that 1 byte is a drop in the ocean because we're going for 250 or 500 hertz and we need to go 10 kilometers with that. And so we're shaving everything to the bone. Well, DJI is a 50 megabit per second link. That's true. DJI at most goes 10 or 13 kilometers. Right? 11111 says the sequence number is useful for reordering packets on the receiving end. They do not necessarily arrive in the same order they were sent. That's not true, 11111, because this is not an Ethernet network where packets can get routed and arrive out of order. This is a wireless radio link. You transmit the data, it goes out the radio, it comes in the other end. That's it. With a wireless link, with a wireless radio link like this, the data will always arrive in the same order it was transmitted, or it won't arrive at all. And there are no retransmissions. There's no retransmissions. So if a packet gets lost, it won't get retransmitted and then reordered. Reordering is not, it doesn't happen. They either get there in order or they don't get there at all. No, with reflections, they would not be picked up out of order. There's no such thing as a reflection that is going to give you enough latency to cause them to come in out of order. I don't buy that. I think you're stretching. Mad Max FPV points out the frustrating thing about Crossfire where you get telemetry lost like 20 seconds after you unplug the quad. The reason for that is that people were getting telemetry lost warnings in races due to the interference. That's what I've been told. And so they made that timeout much longer. But don't think that it means that your telemetry data is all delayed by 20 seconds. It doesn't. It's just the timeout for the final telemetry lost when the quad powers down to prevent false alarms. Carbon Cage FPV wants to know about a Radio Master going into emergency mode mid-flight. Carbon Cage, that usually means your SD card is messed up. Get a new SD card and cross your finger it doesn't happen again. BW, thank you for a $5 super chat. What was your reaction to the Rotorisco remix music video? It's cute. It's cute. I appreciate the, it's an honor. You guys are reflected packets can be picked up out of order for sure. That's one way MIMO takes advantage of reflections. No, stop. Guys, we're talking about the speed of light. This stuff moves through the air at a significant fraction of the speed of light. The transmission latency is so short. It's so short. There's no... It's not the speed of light, buddy. It's radio waves. Are you for real? Are you pulling my leg? There's no such thing as like, think about it. If the first packet got reflected, why wouldn't the second packet get reflected? There's no such thing as a scenario where the first data packet goes out, bounces off a reflection and comes back to the receiver, and there's enough time in between that like they would just interfere with each other and because that that first one that bounces back, even if there was enough latency in the bounce, it would just interfere with the third one. It would just interfere with the third one. Because it's a continuous stream of data. And any bounce that was sufficiently long that it would cause enough latency that you miss a whole packet would probably also be long enough that you would have no signal energy because it would be so long. No. There's no world. This is not a no, there's no world in which a bounce would cause packets to come in out of order. It's impossible. It's not possible under these parameters. All right. I can't tell if you guys are just jerking my leg or if you're serious. Multipath versus reflection. This is not an RF theory channel. I am Destructive Man. I don't know if you know, but before I did FPV, I was a wireless engineer. I built wireless networks. So, I mean, I know a thing or two about RF. Like, I'm not an actual RF engineer, but I know a thing or two about RF. MIMO absolutely does use reflections to transmit packets simultaneously. But the key thing is that you'll have two transmitters and two receivers, one of them receiving the one bounce and one receiving the other bounce. And that is not what Express LRS or it's not what anything is doing here in the FPV world. Okay, good for you. But you said radio, yeah. Sorry, I'm getting people mixed up. Yeah. Reflected packets interfere. That's exactly right. If there was a reflection, it would not result in a packet being received out of order. It would result in the reflected signal interfering with the direct signal, and then you just get corruption. Anyway. Okay. Well, we're coming to the end of the stream. Aaron Ciotti is back from Don't use Pure Race. What's up with Pure Race, UAV Tech? Don't leave me hanging. What's with Pure Race? What's wrong with Pure Race? Oof. Aaron Ciotti is back from his movie set, being a big shot with Hollywood stars, shooting films. And now he's going to stream in about 3 minutes. Ciotti, where's that link, buddy? You streaming tonight? But not before UAV Tech tells us what's wrong with Pure Race. There he is. Aaron Ciotti's going to be streaming in just about 3 minutes. Zach Cageley, I did see your issue about overheating HDO2s. I don't know what would cause that. I haven't heard of HDO2s shutting down because they overheated. But I mean, it seems like it's possible that happened. Wow. UAV Tech says Pure Race is all over the place with 8 millisecond and 4 millisecond. Just use Race 250, Race 500, or Solid 250. Well, good to have you here running these tests. UAV Tech, I'm sure if you publish that result in the Ghost forum, Tony Cake will get right on figuring out what's wrong. I'm sure he would want to know, because he cares about that stuff. Anyway, thank you guys so much for coming out. I will see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. for the FPV news with It's Blunty. We'll be back. And Aaron Ciotti is going to be streaming at 10. He's posting the link if you guys want to keep streaming into the night. He finally lost a quad. I'm surprised he's only just lost a quad. Lounge 5 R4 in your ESC is connected to UART TX for ESC telemetry. If your ESC doesn't have a telemetry wire, then just leave R4 disconnected. Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it. Thank you so much. It's been a great stream. I've had a lot of fun yelling at you. We're going to wrap up, and I will see you tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week. Happy flying, everybody. Have a great stream. Siati, thank you guys all for coming out. I'll see you next time. Oh, and Mr. Cricket says goodnight.